And very good evening to everybody. Welcome to this next session in our live stream Music Revival online series of live performances. Christopher Daigen coming to you from our home in KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. Thank you for joining us. We'll be starting our program in a few minutes' time at 6 o'clock exactly. And welcome to this performance, this next section of our Wednesday, 2nd of December piano hour choice of music. It's a beautiful, cool day here, and it's been actually very cool. In fact, the dogs have even got their jerseys on this evening. And it's a beautiful summer, chilly day, as it sometimes happens in this part of the world. But we have some wonderful music for you tonight. I hope you are going to enjoy our selection. If you're able to join us for the next hour, choice of music from around the world with South American tangos again, and Scott Joplin rag, as well as some classical pieces. We have a great movement, a single piece from Beethoven in this evening's program. Every concert, every stream that we're presenting this month leading up to the 16th of December, we are including some Beethoven, so tonight is no exception. This is for the 250th anniversary of Beethoven's birth in 1770. And I hope you are going to enjoy the selection. I'm going to play a repeat of Debussy, which I played on Saturday night, with a little correction around that, and an improvisation on a seasonal carol, you might say, and a really wonderful choice. I think it's going to be a wonderful choice. Some fast, brilliant music, some very gentle and calming music, and just generally a wholesome, rewarding and rich choice to entertain you with and to take your mind off things for just a little while. If you are able to support us, once again, please do visit our website. You will see a QR code at the end of the program pop up if you're still watching then. But otherwise, if you visit our website, you'll be able to find bank details as well as PayPal and Quicket and Yoko and various links to platforms to support us. We're very grateful for all the supports that have come through. So many people have been generous with the regular monthly donations that have really kept me going. Just a reminder, of course, once again, that with the current lockdown restrictions, unable to stage or present any of my own concerts as I normally do. I normally present 100 concerts or so a year, not only in this part of the world, around KZN, as well as in Franschhoek, in Cape Town and Johannesburg, and of course that all came to a crashing halt in March. But this is our 71st stream. Can you believe it? We're still keeping up at 2 a week and 71 streams later. So we'll be cracking 100 within a couple of weeks, probably early next year. And it's amazing. It's been an amazing project, and it's been an amazing experience for me. And I'll be telling you a little bit about that, about something that I've actually really benefited from at these live streams. So it is 6 o'clock. I'm going to start off immediately with two pieces of music, which I'm going to present to start the program on a very even note. The first of which is Bach's very famous Prelude in C. The Prelude in C, the opening prelude, just a calm, gentle moment, just a meditation to ease us into this evening's program. And then I launch into the first movement of Beethoven's exhilarating sonata, the Waldstein Sonata, Opus 53, piece of music that Beethoven dedicated to the Count Waldstein, a great patron, a great friend, great supporter, someone who really believed in Beethoven's worth and really valued him as a friend, valued him as an artist, and valued him as a composer. And I think this meant an incredible amount to the composer himself, Beethoven, and he really rewarded the Count with one of his most positive, luminous and brilliantly bristling pieces of music. So I'm going to play the first movement from the Waldstein, which is really regarded as one of Beethoven's most exceptionally buoyant, optimistic and exciting sonatas to play. But first of all, the Bach Prelude in C. Who said Beethoven wasn't exciting? Well, what incredibly brilliant and energetic music. One of the things I've talked about before that I'm so fascinated by as a pianist who plays a lot of different types of music, but also who's lived with some of these pieces for many years. And I think this is what the opportunity of a pianist who performs and who lives with music, or any musician who lives with the piece of music for many years, is they're able to gauge and really get to know the music, but also the composer, and recognize the patterns. And it's so interesting to me how different energies are absorbed or needed or projected through the music. When you're playing Chopin, you feel a completely different atmosphere as opposed to when you're playing a piece of music like that by Beethoven, which is a completely different personality. It just feels like chalk and cheese. It's difficult to explain. And one of the things which I've really, as I said to you earlier, I've actually really found this whole live stream experience so incredibly fascinating. 71 streams now, and every single one of them, right from the beginning, I've spent many hours actually watching myself. There's not one that I haven't watched at least 2 or 3 times. And I've learned so much about my own playing, about my own performing, what works, not only generally, but also what works on this live stream process. Because what you're hearing at home via YouTube or Facebook, wherever you're watching, is a very much a sound compressed level. You're not hearing the full dynamic range of the piano as I would, or anyone sitting in this room. It's sort of modern, it's sort of modified into a general level. But still, certain things carry across and certain things come through. And one of the things which I've just discovered recently in the last 2 weeks, which is incredibly exciting for me actually, it's why I want to tell you about this and share this with you, is that I've discovered something to do with my technique that I've maybe been doing not correctly, or that actually I've discovered something that really works for my hands. I have rather, everyone has different hands, everyone has different shape hands. So I won't say I have rather odd or short fingers or this. My hands are just my hands. And I've discovered that by working on one particular aspect of my focus and my hand weight, etc., I've discovered a whole new lease on life on my playing. And it seems like everything has just seemed to be working that much easier and that much more comfortably. And it's incredibly exciting for me. So I hope some of that might have come across in that music there. So I'm going to move on to a completely different sound, a completely different energy now, with 2 pieces of music, again by Ernesto Nazareth, South American composer, the Scott Joplin of South America, Brazilian composer, and his tango called Ranzinza, which translates as excited. It's a very energetic and a very sprightly little piece of music. And then straight after that, Scott Joplin rag, the Scott Joplin, the king of ragtime, a North American composer, and a very charming piece of his, which he called Scott Joplin's New Rag. So it's the Nude Rag by Scott Joplin. These are 2 pieces of music which are going to carry us through into a completely different atmosphere and completely different feel. bouncy, ebullient might be the right word, Scott Joplin's New Rag by Scott Joplin, and before that a Ranzinza, a piece of music translating as Excited, a Brazilian tango by the composer Ernesto Nazareth. As I said many times, Scott Joplin, one of the few people of his African American background to have the privilege of receiving formal music trainings, classical music trainings, and learnt and studied the music of Mozart and Bach and Beethoven. So his music is really based in in classical musical principles, which gives it this very timeless quality and very interesting construction of melodies and phrases and shapes. And what's very interesting about that particular rag is that the melody you hear at the beginning actually comes back at the end. So a majority of these Scott Joplin rags, you have something and then something else and something else and something else. You never really return back to the original theme, and that is an unusual one about Scott Joplin's rag. It also has this rather charming little chromatic passage, which is in closed octave or open octave. It's the way it's written. It's not what I played. I played something horrendously different. Went a bit horribly wrong there on my part. Sorry about that. But nevertheless, Scott Joplin's New Rag, a great deal of fun. I'm going to ask Barry. Barry's running the controls. I'm going to ask Barry if he can focus on the board for a minute. I can't remember the order of my program. So I'm going to... Okay, there we go. Satie and Debussy. So part of these programs that we've put out and that generally I've adopted in the presentation for many years is to introduce something about the pieces. And I'm always trying to be correct, and sometimes I get it wrong. So I'm going to correct myself on two issues here. About 2 weeks ago, I did a discussion about Chopin in Mallorca, and during this presentation I mentioned at the end that Chopin had, the cause of Chopin's death was now thought to be a genetic disorder, possibly something like cystic fibrosis. And I got a message on my YouTube channel from Lance and Peter Maritzburg, who I know watches regularly and comments very regularly as well. And Lance pointed me to an article which actually said something completely different. Well, not completely, but slightly different. And I realized that, in fact, my knowledge of this, that saying that it was a genetic disorder, was based on my visit to the Chopin Museum, the Chopin Institute in Warsaw, and that was in 2016. In fact, in 2017, I had read this article, but I didn't realize it was actually later. There was a study published in the American Journal of Medicine, I think it is, where several cardiologists went to Warsaw and looked at Chopin's heart. Now remember, Chopin, when he died, requested specifically that his heart be removed and returned to Poland, which it did. His sister returned his heart, smuggled it in a glass vase of cognac, where it still resides in a church in Warsaw. And it's been very carefully guarded. It is visited by many, many people. This shrine to Chopin is obviously a great attraction and a great place of paying of respects for many, many people. And in 2017, this group of American cardiologists went to look at Chopin's heart. They removed the vase from its resting place. They didn't remove the heart out of the vase, but they took photographs and looked at it very, very carefully. And their conclusion from what they photographed and what they were able to see of Chopin's heart, that he actually did die of pericarditis, which is advanced tuberculosis. So the most recent study, 2017, then does come back to that tuberculosis that was the cause of Chopin's death. And the other issue, which I got a little bit muddled up the other night, I was talking about Debussy's Poisson d'Or, or golden fish as it translates, and I was trying to find the right word, and I called it a Chinese lacquer print. It's not a print at all. It's a Japanese, and it's a lacquer panel that Debussy had in his possession, and which can still be seen in the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. And this depicts not goldfish, although the title is Golden Fish of the piece of music. It actually depicts a carp. Some people say 2 carps, some people say it's 1 carp and its reflection, but it's a lacquer panel from Japan, not from China, and certainly not a print. And you was thinking of the word, I couldn't think of the word. Panel was the word that I was looking for. So to bring us to that, I am going to play a piece of music by Satie. I played one of his Nwasiens recently, which had been used in the very popular Netflix series called The Queen's Gambit, which many people have been talking about. I played the first Nwasien. So many people commented how interesting and fascinating that music was. I'll play the third of the three Nwasiens by Satie, Eric Satie. And straight after that, I'm going to play again Poisson d'Or by Debussy. I played it on Saturday night's concert, but it's a piece of music that I put so much work into, and Saturday was a few days ago. I think it'd be great to hear this music again. A beautiful piece of music, really extraordinary textures and glistening light there. The Golden Fish, Poisson d'Or by Claude Debussy. Golden fish scales glistening in the light, the fish darting through the water. Really magnificent textures and sounds and a play of brilliance there that the composer produces. Before that, Eric Satie's Noisien, one of the three Noisien that he wrote. Very unusual titles always that Satie came up with. One of the unusual stories, most fascinating stories I always like about Satie is that his colleagues always wondered why he was wearing the same clothes. He always seemed to be dressed in the same brown suit no matter where he went and no matter how often they saw him. He was very reclusive. And after his death, they found in his apartment, his Paris apartment, a wardrobe full of brown suits, all exactly the same color. He only wore one color. Very interesting man. They're very interesting music and interesting ideas that he created through his music. I'm going to move on to two pieces of music that have a very homely and a very heartfelt, rich sound and atmosphere to them. First of all, a impromptu from the second set of impromptus by Franz Schubert. I played the first set of 4 in one of the concerts recently. I'd like to play the second impromptu from the second set that he wrote. I found this piece of music really very heartwarming, but there's something very peaceful about it. It seems to me almost to be like a hymn. It's a hymn with a very relaxed, a very centered feel and a very contained atmosphere. It really is something very peaceful. The midsection is a little bit turbulent, but then an exact repeat of the opening section returns, and it's a really wonderfully just peaceful and calm, homespun atmosphere to the music. Very centered piece of music, as I say. And that's going to lead us straight into a seasonal carol, which I'm going to improvise on. So those two pieces are going to go together. A very calm, a very centered and homespun, our own version there, our own improvisation coming up on the carol Silent Night. So two very calming, relaxed pieces of music. You'll see some of our decor this evening. There's even a Christmas tree hidden in amongst all this. Behind me, there's Beethoven for Beethoven Month. There's some selection of orchids, cattleyas from the greenhouse that Barry's been growing and have suddenly come up. This magnificent purple and white one, which is quite spectacular and quite rare behind me, which I'm sure you'll see. And here we are joined by our guests. We have got, just in time, here is little Lucy with the big waggy tail coming through. Wendy's already set herself up and waiting to give Barry one of those very direct in the camera looks. I can see you having a good sniff with Lucy. And you'll even see that Granny Lulu's here. And Granny Lulu is wearing her rugby jersey because it's a bit chilly. It's not the Sharks rugby jersey, but the Barks. She's number 3 for the Barks. There's Granny Lulu, and as well as Wendy Pop. an improvisation there, my own version, a spontaneous search around the seasonal carol Silent Night. Amazingly enough, that piece of music composed by Franz Gruber. If I remember correctly, he had written it for Christmas Eve, for the church service, the Christmas Eve service, which he had intended to present this, and the organ had broken, had been bitten through, the bellows had been eaten by rats, and so he ended up presenting that for the very first time, accompanying himself on the guitar. And what an incredible story, and what an incredible event that is. We always think, well, I always think, I think many people think as well, that these carols and this music has just somehow always been part of our lives. It just has always been in existence. Well, it's amazing to think that someone actually did write the carol Silent Night by Franz Gruber. And my own spontaneous improvisation there, it seemed to be pretty interesting. Some very nice chords, I thought. And before that, I played the Schubert Impromptu in A flat from the second set, the second impromptu from the second set of 4. I'm going to end off this evening's program with 2 pieces of music, the first of which is a contemporary piece which fits into this idea of film music. Andrew and Kloof had asked about the film music that I played from the Twilight films before, and I did play The Meadow by Alexander Desplat some weeks ago. And this is another piece from this Twilight series, very popular series of films. This is a piece by a young Korean pianist called Yeruma, and it's called The River Flows Through You. And after that, I was asked, I can't remember exactly who it is, apologies, someone commented on Facebook the other day and said, please won't you play Umbumbulu again? We love it when you play your own piece. One of my own compositions, Umbumbulu, a piece of music that was inspired by the name Umbumbulu when I was when my friend Joanne Rosario was visiting from London, and we were driving back and forward between Durban, as I so often do. After a concert, she said, well, what a great name that is, Umbumbulu. It sounds so musical. It sounds like it's just calling out for a piece of music. And so a few hours later, I presented her with something, and it's become one of my most popular pieces. So this is The River Runs, or The River Flows Through You, and Umbumbulu. Ending off this evening's program of Piano Hour on the 2nd of December. That was one of my own pieces called Umbumbulu from the album Indigo. Recorded later with David Sayeras, and I'm really hoping that one day, I'm sort of thinking to myself, I wonder if this is ever going to be over. Are we ever going to see David Sayeras and Joanne Rosario in this part of the world again? One wonders. Who knows what the future holds for us? It's a very uncertain time. Before Umbumbulu, I played a piece called The River Flows Through You by Yuruma from the Twilight, or as used in the Twilight films. And that brings us to an end in this evening's session. Thanks to Barry for running the controls this evening. He might be producing a QR code on the screen in a second, which is going to give you an opportunity to point your camera app on your smartphone at the screen if you're looking at a screen, and that will immediately take you to a Cricket platform for a donation or a ticket if you'd like to buy one. We're very grateful for everyone who has been donating. I was concerned about donors fatigue as it's known, but apparently that is certainly not something we are experiencing. So I'm very encouraged by the positive feedback and the support that we are receiving. We are intending to carry on with 2 streams a week like this, certainly indefinitely. Exciting things happening on Saturday. We have the trio Sophia. I'll be joined by a violinist and cellist Ralitza and Ralitza for Dvorak's Dumki trio. And then following that, in the week of the 16th of December, I'll be playing an all Beethoven program on Beethoven's birthday, and 2 days before that, as part of the week, Aristide Duplessis, the amazing cellist, will be here to play some Beethoven sonatas. So we'll have an extra stream on the Monday night for Beethoven week. Incredibly exciting. Hope you've enjoyed this evening's music, the selection from Beethoven, the seasonal carols, some very heartfelt, warm, relaxing music, and we have some very exciting programs as always coming up. Thank you for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed the session. Support us if you can, please, and we look forward to seeing you on Saturday and next week.